Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Card Subject Change podcast. Starring well, not starring. Um Voiced by me, I guess. Today we're gonna talk a little bit about WrestleMania Night 2. We're gonna talk about the Raw after WrestleMania and NXT, as well as that episode of Dynamite. And some opinions there as well. Um all I'm going to say when it comes to that topic is I'm going to shoot from the hip how I feel and really kind of give you an honest opinion on what I think the company needs to do going forward to avoid making the mistakes of previous brands that no longer exist. Um, let's go ahead and start with night two of WrestleMania. Night two of WrestleMania was a great night, probably top three all time. And I'd love to say that 40 Night 2 surpassed WrestleMania 17 in a lot of senses because of the story. Not because of Cody's story or Roman's story, but just the stories alone. Let me give you an example. Um, Back in November, long before we knew CM Punk was coming back, you had Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest. Priest still had the briefcase back in November. Kind of bit of foreshadowing, don't you think? Kind of owed him one. If you remember the wording of a Monday Night Raw or something like that, right before Survivor Series and the War Games match. Now, to open the show with a heater such as Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins can deliver, whether it's the first match of the card or the end of the night. He's that good. Same thing with Drew McIntyre. You add a CM Punk, and you essentially give yourselves the three elements of TNT. No pun intended to the network. It's actually a pretty decent television network, especially with sports. Um, and the match delivered. You know, Hopefully it's allowing with the end result Seth to get a little bit of break on his body, kind of allows him and his wife to negotiate their worth. Also, with the little bit afterwards, the little bit of celebration that Drew got to win the big one at WrestleMania in front of fans. Now there's this video circulating around this young lady. I don't know her name. I think it's actually quite funny that this young lady pretty much is scolding Drew for what he does next. And do I blame her? No. Excuse me, mind we were all fans, but um, you know, what did Punk tell Drew months ago? When you decide to provoke said demon, he becomes the devil himself. And I want people to think about that comment. He did not do himself any favors. He did not help himself. And ultimately, what did you do? You provoked the demon. He became the devil and entered Damian Priest. Now you have organized chaos, a reason for everything, long term booking, as we're so famously told to understand and embrace. So, anyhow, we get to The end result of that, Damian Priest's brand new World Heavyweight Championship. You've just now added more legs to the CM Punk Drew McIntyre feud when CM Punk is healthy, if he isn't healthy already. Wink, wink. Um, and you know, you still have it to where Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest can go at each other. Especially you got a Clash at the Castle in June again in Scotland. And seeing the arena, taking a look at the arena that they're gonna it actually has a pretty good chance of just standing out for the body of how the arena is built. That it's a 360 view of the event. And gives a lot of room to additional fans so they can build to whatever. Um, what was next? Let's see here. You had I'm just gonna shoot with different matches I remember. Uh, Kevin Owens, Logan Paul, Randy Orton, a legend, a legend in the making, and Logan Paul. And this is no diss at Logan Paul. Since he's been a part of the company, since he's done his thing, proved his worth sitting in that space that he is in. Um, he's maximized his minutes. He's made his worth in that ring stand out. You know, we all remember it was a match against Rey Mysterio and Dom Mysterio at WrestleMania 38. I believe it was night 2. And he showed his worth. He showed he could hang. I mean, even Rey Mysterio in a match against him in Saudi, I believe, uh, protected him from it, or he protected Ray, excuse me, from an almost grievous mistake in the ring, which shows you he understands in large part the business he got himself into. Um, Solid match. The bumps that needed to be taken were taken. Dude is standing out as a high flyer. You don't have to sit there and compliment Randy Orton or Kevin Owens' work. Their bodies of work with WrestleMania's past are exactly the reason why, WWE, Triple H, and Creative trusted a Logan Paul with a championship and put him in the ring with two extremely talented and know the business enough to where they're going to make all three of themselves shine collectively. And that's what they did. Would I have loved Kevin Owens to go over? Sure. Does Randy need the belt? No. But hey, it's Randy Orton. Anytime Randy Orton's a champion is worthy television. But it only builds the mystique around Logan Paul if this is truly a more full-time thing for him to build his resume on, to go, oh, okay, this kid who is a YouTube streamer and talking head actually has worth, you know. Um, it was a really good match. I dug it. Had no issues with it. Let's see here. Bailey and Io Sky easily could have been the match outside the main event that stole the show. Io alone was a show stealer in her match with Bailey. Bailey selling that injury to her leg made her the biggest baby face going into that match. The most sympathetic baby face the whole entire match. You're hoping that the injury didn't hamper her getting to the finish. Io Sky, had Vince McMahon still been running WWE, Io Sky would have never been allowed to get the move set in as she did with Bailey. And, a big theme this weekend is going from the four horsewomen era, even though three of the four still compete for WWE, that the four horsemen era, or four horsewomen, you know, woo! Sorry, Rick. Uh, that it's a new era, along with this new era of WWE under the Triple H Paul Levesque regime. Um, I look at it this way: you have a hell of a crop of talent both on the main roster and in NXT. As you've seen with the Next Gen documentary on the Roku channel, uh, they are finding talent, whether through NIL or whatever, that WWE is good at evaluating and finding talent from, that they are finding what they need and who they need to be that next generation. So when a Becky Lynch, a Charlotte Flair, a Bailey, who are getting older, um, I mean, heck, I'm a few years older, I believe, than Charlotte, and she's, I believe, the oldest of the bunch. Um, yeah, you want to be able to see a Tiffany Stratton, a JC Jane, a Cora Jade, a Roxanne Perez, a Gigi Dolan, who Gigi Dolan, as Priscilla Kelly, was already established in the Indies, but WWE rub only helps a little bit more. She could go back being Priscilla Kelly and she'd still get put asses in the seats. Just by her name alone. Or her former known as. Uh but yes, the Bailey Io match was the right mix of high fly, ground wrestling, you know, and it all fit for the 30 minutes it was given during WrestleMania Night 2. The Philly Street Fight. Now, it's not going to get an F because you have six really good talent. Um, and I could sit here dissecting and applauding um the Authors of Pain, the Street Profits, and the Almighty Bobby Lashley. I'm just gonna say it to this: it was a good match. If you needed a little bit, I'd say comedic relief mixed with some hardcore wrestling, table bumps. I mean, BFAB, Brandy or Brianna, I think her name is in real life, and Scarlett Bordeaux. That bump was awesome for somebody who's barely been in the business more, I think, 2 years, and then you've got Scarlett who has taken bumps before and other. Um, it it tends to go to show that they were trying to get everybody over, whether it was in the Pride or the Final Testament. Akam and Razor. We'll get to Akam Razor in the Final Testament a little bit later. But with those individuals, it's nice to see that Triple H um, has kind of gone by this preface to 1 second. The Triple H. Sorry for the interruption, y'all. Getting back to night 2 and getting back to that Philly Street Fight. I think the inclusion of Bully Ray, Bubba Ray Dudley, whatever you want to call him, uh, was a good touch because it was Philly. Philly is where he made his, as he so famously says, made his cheese, made his bread. Made the dollars that got him by. Um, the nice little callback to Devon with the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley. Nice little touch. But it was it was the right amount of comedy and hardcore wrestling. And like I said, everybody, even though some people could be like, "Oh well, that match sucked." No, it got people over. It gave the payoff to the feud, and as we see Tuesday, which I'm talking about later, it benefited everybody. Let's see here. What else was two? And I'm pretty sure I'm missing somebody. And I apologize for missing said talent or missing said match. Who else? AJ Styles and LA Knight. It was a nice little match. It was what we needed to see, and the right person got put over. I mean, AJ Styles is an established hand, and he's a legend with WWE at this point. So, you know, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Hell, the Boneyard match, and it wasn't even an in-ring match, is one of my favorite pieces of work from AJ Styles. You know, to be the Undertaker's last match. Anyhow, LA Knight, you only hope to see more things. And now with Damian Priest no longer having the briefcase, hopefully it is an LA Knight that we see in Toronto in a few months, I believe in July. Win the Money in the Bank briefcase. A Tiffany Stratton Money in the Bank briefcase. But yeah, those matches were great. Now we get to the pièce de résistance, the main event. Bloodline rules. Didn't see very much of the Bloodline other than Jimmy and Solo. And the talk during the day was, are more members of the family going to come outside of Jimmy and Solo and The Rock? The answer was no. Did it feel like Avengers Endgame? Sure. I mean, I've even heard comparisons to Star Wars. That Rock was the Emperor in a sense, Roman Darth Vader. However you want to write it. It was the perfect way for Cody to look like he had to overcome, for Seth to be able to uphold his promise to be Cody's shield. Going back to the long-term booking 10 years ago, when Seth hit Roman with the chair, effectively ending the shield then and joining the Authority. But also, I will say this, and, people are like, well, why did Undertaker, get involved? Austin should. Does anybody remember outside of Brock Lesnar who else that Undertaker lost to at WrestleMania? Anybody? WrestleMania 33 come to anybody's mind? He lost to Roman Reigns. And, here's the funny part. Rock and Undertaker have never had a WrestleMania moment either. So it gave Rock a WrestleMania moment with one of his longtime peers. And it gave kind of like an ability to kind of sew and tie the knot back to WrestleMania 33 7 years ago on night 2. John Cena. John Cena declared Cody the future face of the WWE in a previous promo. So, right there. you know, c- set, yeah, excuse me, a lot of passing the torch happened on Sunday night. Now we have a Rhodes who is world heavyweight champion or universal heavyweight champion or WWE champion or whatever you want to call it. We have a Rhodes that has done something that his brother and his father were unable to do. And not saying that Dusty didn't do it, it just was never official or on the official WWE books that Dusty had beaten superstar Billy Graham. I think his entrance was a nice harkening back of his biography. One, two, the loss the year before and the loss the night before. Three, the imagery being battle worn. Uh, the mask and Brandy coming out, harkened back to when he broke the throne. So what it seemed like to me also was that Triple H was in some sense passing the torch to Cody, that this is a new era, a new generation, and that Cody is the leader of said new era and generation from the King of Kings. Uh, the finish was perfect. Finish was absolutely perfect. A failed spear, a simple kick to the head and body area, and the Crossroads Trinity, leading to Michael Cole's probably one of Michael Cole's most legendary calls in professional wrestling history in regards to a count. And I don't think enough people, I'm glad they do it now, but I don't think enough people give Michael Cole his flowers. He was a corny ass heel when he was Team Miz, but that man has been the face, the voice of generations, 4 generations actually, of professional wrestling in regards to WWE. We didn't even get Jim Ross for more than mainly the new generation, the Attitude Era, and Ruthless Aggression. So yeah, I I love to see that Michael Cole is now heralded with setting careers of Blaze, Vic Joseph, the heir apparent, as he calls him, Corey Graves, Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee is we can hold Michael Cole up there to JR because Pat McAfee is Michael Cole's Jerry Lawler. Uh, Wade Barrett, Booker T, even, you know, I don't have to speak to the experience and the color commentary that Booker T and Wade Barrett can do. Wade Barrett did it in NWA when NWA was just first getting rebirthed under Billy Corgan. And Booker T does this for a living now that he is mainly a retired uh, wrestling teacher or retired wrestler and now teacher of the new era, a crop of talent that are getting filtered into the WWE from ROW, Reality Wrestling, out of Houston, Texas, by the way. Um, and yeah, and Roxanne Perez, perfect example. Anyhow, going back on track, WrestleMania 40 Night 2, probably one of the best, if not the best night of WrestleMania uh, that I've been alive for. And I've been alive for all 40. I only started watching after the third one, but I've been alive for all 40. And I will honestly say, Probably top 3 all time. Let's see here. Go on to Raw and NXT. It's a nice little tribute and touch that uh Triple H opened the show with Cody, giving him his flowers, and I kind of think that going 45 minutes with a promo was a little unnecessary, but I get it. It's The Rock. You're not going to tell Dwayne Johnson, hey, by the way, this is the window you got. Could it have been condensed in 20, 25 minutes and you would have had more matches on that Monday card? Sure. They still were able to get the one they allegedly cut on the show, even if all of it was a minute or two. Still made Chelsea Green look like one of the biggest female heels in the company, and it kind of made Jade Cargill a bigger baby face in that, hey, I'm coming in, I'm going to vanquish the heel and call it a night. Let's see here. Indy Hartwell, and I believe it was Roxanne Perez. Indy has a potential to be as good as Indy got in NXT before she moved up to Raw last year. In the same, Roxanne Perez, we already know is good. And, likelihood is her and Lyra are coming up. So she's probably going to lose to somebody at spring break in 2 weeks. The 2 weeks that they're doing spring breaking down there in NXT. And she's showcasing what TV needs to see. Ilya, who did Ilya fight? Anyhow, Ilya Dragunov is going to be special. Regardless of where he ends up, he's going to be special. He can cut a promo. He can fight and brawl with the best of them. He's also very technically sound as a professional wrestler. So whenever they do decide, I guess, to drop the NXT title to Trick down there in NXT, Ilya's stock is only going to shoot upward. Let's see here. What else? The main event. I mean, I'm not going to stay too long on Raw. Thought it was a really good Raw post WrestleMania. One of the better ones in the last couple of years. We all know why. The main event. The the I'm sorry and the yell stunt from Ricochet was it had me rolling on the floor laughing when McIntyre powerbombed him, and you hear this audible yell in the whole entire arena of 20,000 people. Yeah, if I got whipped up that fast and was getting dropped on my back, I probably would scream too. The I'm sorry to his fiance Samantha Irvin. So who night 1, night 2, and every week on Raw makes Raw worth watching. Doesn't over embellish or, overstay her welcome. That woman makes it worth watching Monday Night Raw just for her intros of the talent. It was a good establishment of main event Jey Uso. I guess it's pretty much being said. Jey Uso is a main event talent now on Monday Night Raw against Damian Priest, kind of given a 4-6 week run against each other before. Obviously, it'll be Priest and McIntyre in Scotland. It creates a new feud between Ricochet and Bronson Reed, which those two already know can play off each other real well. One being a big guy, uh, and the other being a high flyer. But don't let that high flyer fool you. I mean, hell, he slammed Ivar a few weeks back. So he can stand with the heavyweights when he needs to. But the best part of that whole entire match towards the end, McIntyre and CM Punk furthering that feud. It was great. It was awesome. Um, for like I said, going back to tonight too, when you provoke the demon, he becomes the devil himself. So now McIntyre has himself a devil he has to slay. And it's not going to be very easy come when CM Punk is 100% for McIntyre to slay said demon. The Second City Saint, even though I've been saying he's been a demon and a devil due to a promo he cut with McIntyre, is giving further reason why it was such a great hire to bring him back. You know, and the fact that he's been a team player and he's been contributing to ideas when it comes to talent and how talent can do this and approach a promo that way, or in the match, you know, how they segment and run their match speaks volumes to what was missed over the last 10 years had the relationship been a better one. Um, I can't argue with the decision that Nick Khan made and ultimately Triple H made to bring him back and to have him on this run to WrestleMania and beyond. And I mean, we would all love to see his wife back, but you know, we can hold our breath in one instance and hope in the other and see which one carries more weight. Um, all in all, I'd say Raw was about a solid 7. Uh, good for what needed to be talked about versus whatever. Oh, and then the going back, I'm gonna pick up on this because I just remembered it. Awesome Truth versus Judgment Day with a guest appearance from somebody we can't see. The 15 knuckle shuffle with Truth and Miz doing it, and then somebody else getting hit in the head by some guy, some invisible force, and then the stereo attitude adjustments with said invisible force uh, was a nice little heater and left the crowd really happy that Judgment Day, who has been a thorn in the sides of people on Raw, kind of got their comeuppance during the match. Um, it was nice to see John Cena back, even if it's the one of the last times for a few months. It's nice to see him back, and maybe one day he'll shave that head of his and just pull Shawn Michaels. Who knows? Bald Cena probably isn't a horrible look. Then again, I'm not out to figure that out either because I was bald once, and well, there are good points and bad points to being bald or having bald spots. So, anyhow, let's move on to NXT. NXT was good. You know, Lyra and Roxanne for their stuff. Tatum Paxley going heel, finally turning on. Lyra was we've been waiting for forever. Ilya setting up the next match with Trick and Mello still being involved before the draft. I mean, we all know Mello's going to the main roster. We'll figure that out on April 26th and 29th between Raw and SmackDown. But also the fact that Trick is going to have to run the gambit essentially in 2 different stipulation matches, one being a cage, which I see him overcoming Mello. I don't think they're going to give the deuce to Mello. I think the cage is going to be Mello's right off. Um, and then the loser leaves town match. It's already been said that Ilya is eligible for the draft. And I foresee Trick being the face of NXT, which, he's got that rocket pack strapped to his back, and Shawn Michaels and Ava or Simone Johnson or whatever you want to call her this week. And William Regal and Matt Bloom, I believe, have the right direction for NXT. As NXT is entering their next evolution, their next generation with this draft. The Wolf Dogs. Talk about a tag team, a pair of individuals who only made each other better coming together, starting as foes, becoming tag team partners, and leaving back to the main roster as really good friends. Baron Corbin, and I've been a big Baron Corbin fan for years. Had he been booked right under Vince, oh my God, the things you could have done for that young man. Braun Breaker. He is the right amount of his uncle, his dad, and the work that WWE has put into him over the last couple of years. I will say this. Braun Breaker is a future world heavyweight or WWE champion. It's just a matter of time. Braun Breaker could potentially main event just as many WrestleManias as Roman Reigns if booked right and maintained right. The nice little finish at the end with Axiom and Nathan Fraser going over was good and getting the tag titles. Kind of serving them up as side dishes to AOP and to the Final Testament. I get it. We're destined to see kind of a rebirth for Karrion Kross in NXT. Kind of a run to where his faction can get more dirt under their feet and build their house and castle for which the faction can support themselves on. The fact that they have Paul Ellering, who is a wealth of wrestling knowledge himself, is a great thing. Scarlett can go anywhere and do just fine. That woman is good. NXT was great. It's hardly ever a miss. I mean, Sean and Matt Bloom and them have moments, but NXT is hardly ever a miss. Now let's go to what happened last night at Dynamite. And I mean, you can read the dirt sheets and the Twitter and everything else, and see who the fingers are pointing and blame at and whatnot. I mean, it's funny that they booked Samoa Joe, who got a Hall of Famer in any wrestling company he's ever been a part of, and Dustin Rhodes, who should already be in the Hall of Fame, just because he gives that much back to the business, whether it's his wrestling school or his knowledge to the younger talent of AEW, or be willing to put people over. Dustin doesn't have to do that, but he loves to do it because he loves the business. Because his dad instilled in him and his brother that when you pay towards the business, it'll pay it forward back. To have him a little bit of cannon fodder between him, Swerve Strickland and Samoa Joe, I would like to see where the feud's going. I think Swerve deserves to be champion. And Swerve deserved to be champion in NXT. And if booked right, Swerve could have been a champion in WWE. But it's Swerve's time. I mean, he's naturally got himself over, whether through the Mogul Embassy or just his talents alone. The match with Hangman, you name it. Swerve has built what I guess Cody termed was sweat equity already in AEW. Let's see here. Mercedes Monet, Sasha Banks, Mercedes Venardo. I love Sasha. I love Mercedes, whatever you want to call her. But she's coming off really corny right now. And it's not that I dislike the CEO gimmick, but I don't in the long term see the payoff to her already outstanding legacy, regardless of her being Mercedes KV or Sasha Banks or the current iteration now. That and I agree with some people on the interwebs, whether they're AEW fans, WWE fans, wrestling fans in general, that Double or Nothing is really early to put her in the title picture. Now, excuse me, if Julia Hart is injured coming out of this last tapings, that may get rushed. Um, to where Mercedes will finally be wearing something, title, whatever. And it'll I don't want to see a fast track. I want to see a slow burn to Mercedes being the top female. Why do I say this? And this has nothing to do with Mercedes. Right now, we are living in the era of Tony Storm. Timeless Tony Storm, whatever her gimmick is, and let's go back to WWE. I remember when Charlotte Flair pie faced her and left her crying because this was not wrestling, or at least not the love of wrestling that she had anymore. Um, because the people that were in charge there at WWE were out of touch. 10 years out of touch. And yet you were holding back one of the biggest wealth of knowledge and one of the biggest forward thinkers in WWE by trying to diminish him. Paul Levesque, Triple H, anybody, the King of Kings, the Cerebral Assassin. And we'll talk about assassins here in a second. Uh, Tony Storm, has she been in WWE, probably would have been a world champion by now with a wrestling. That's how good that young lady is. It's just a damn shame that the powers that be there in WWE didn't see it back then. I know a few did, but not all thought the same idea. Um, her toast with Thunder Rosa, just the gimmick itself it's funny. The throwback to Turner Classic movie and some things that they do there with that. It's great. Um, let's see here. What else? Let's just get to the meat and potatoes of what went wrong yesterday. First off, you don't use real life sometimes, unless it's the curtain call, to justify, hey, by the way, I punished Triple H. So now Austin gets to go over as King of the Ring in 1996. That is an instance where using real life to mere booking is great. What and if the stories are true coming out, and I don't know, and I'm not gonna speculate it on any further than what I'm talking on now. The stories are true that the Bucks did not want to harken back to All In, especially to build a coming match at Dynasty with FTR, who are really good friends with a certain Second City Saint. That footage with Jack Perry and CM Punk at All In honestly did more grievous harm to AEW than was already going on. And, the promos right after with FTR and the fact that a CM Punk chant was heard during an AEW show. CM Punk was both WrestleMania and Monday Night Raw. Way to give the WWE that many more viewers. Way to steal away viewers away from your product. Now, I have famously always believed that when AEW showed itself in November of 2018 and arrived in May and June of 2019, that it had the opportunity of being one of the more progressive and stronger alternatives to WWE at the time under Vince. That you could love professional wrestling again and not have to be beholden to one company or show. And I love Impact. I love old school Impact or TNA, excuse me. I love old school Impact, old school TNA Impact, and now the rebirth of TNA. I honestly need to be watching more TNA. But you shot yourself in the foot, Tony Khan, thinking that was going to bring you anything more than negative criticism. There is a whole bunch of fans and a whole bunch of people in the industry laughing at Tony Khan right now. A man who has billions in of dollars in the bank to fund this potential to be a great alternative to WWE, to share the platform of professional wrestling with WWE. And you go to resort to essentially what hopefully isn't your McFoley or finger poke of doom moment. I mean, pay attention to your business, your company. Propagate your talent that is there. Put an emphasis on different areas and different talent. Ruby Riott, Ruby Soho, Heidi Lovelace should be a champion in your company. Yes, I said that. Heidi Lovelace, Ruby Riott, Ruby Soho should be a champion in your company. She should have been a champion in WWE. Point blank. You have Deonna Purrazzo. You have Thunder Rosa. You have Britt Baker. You have Jamie Mother Truckin' Hater. And we haven't seen that young lady in over a year. You have the potential of also having an NXT style and WWE women's roster style roster in AEW that can stand with TNA and WWE. Utilize them. Allow them to have as much sweat equity on TV as the guys. Will Ospreay. Yes, it is well known that Will Ospreay is one of the best aerial technicians in professional wrestling. And if it is true that in another instance, and it made a certain somebody who is good friends with the boss's daughter and knows the boss's daughter and knows the work that the boss's daughter's husband. Let's remember, Vince McMahon is no longer the boss. It is Ari Emanuel, Mark Shapiro, Nick Khan, and Triple H. Triple H is his own boss now, essentially WWE. He only has 3 people besides Dwayne The Rock Johnson that he has to answer to. Point blank. Okay? He is the boss. Sleeping with his wife. They've had 3 kids together. They've been married 21 years. They show it every time that those 2 didn't get together because wrestling was cool back then either, or that it's cool now. Those 2 love each other. And yeah, okay. Talk about past drama. It's 2024. It's not 2001, not 2002, not 2003, 4. We are 20 years now ahead of that time in professional wrestling. Now that Vince McMahon is no longer in power, no longer got any controlling stake in WWE, not even really a controlling stake in TKO anymore. Quit trying to take shots at WWE. You know what works best is when you do consistent story-based booking with your talent. You continue a story. I don't know why the Undisputed Kingdom and MJF were even allowed to have that run and that feud late last year going into this year, knowing that its 2 biggest benefactors, Adam Cole and MJF, were injured and we're going to need to take time off. Poor decision making. Lean on your Mark Henrys, lean on your Dustin Rhodes, lean on your Paul Whites. You've got Jerry Lynn. You got people who sat under the learning tree of Paul Heyman. Okay? Paul White did. Jerry Lynn did. Dustin Rhodes knows who Paul Heyman is, probably learned a thing or two between WCW, WWE, and now Mark Henry. Tap into that man's brain. That man has if Mark Henry was Scrooge McDuck and had his own personal money bin, he'd be swimming in money all day long. But get the pencil out of Tony Khan's hand because he's starting to look like Vince McMahon. He's starting to look like taking cheap shots is what's going to put asses in seats and faces on screens. And it's not. I feel bad for Tony Schiavone, a man who has had a Hall of Fame commentating career. And you could see how visibly uncomfortable he was. I even think Taz was like, is Michael Cole available? Can I get on Raw somehow with him and Pat McAfee? Probably not. But, you know, when your talent do not want to be associated with these segments because they already know what's coming. Now, cool that, at the end of said promo, I believe it was Matt opened up his shirt or opened up his jacket and it showed Scapegoat, which is what they're calling Jack Perry right now. If I'm Jack Perry, I'm staying in New Japan, at least for the foreseeable future. Get the scat, and if you're a learned person, you know what scat means. Get the scat off your back that was just thrown on your back by your boss because he wanted to use you to get a few extra ratings to build a storyline. Nah. Stay in New. Go be a legendary gaijin there. And then come back to America when it's right. When that stench is worn off from what was done last night. And that may never leave him. And then trying to make CM Punk look like a villain. Tony Khan made CM Punk look like a god last night. That 3/4 of the internet, outside of the loyalists that AEW does have online, and contracted wrestlers for other companies, Impact, WWE, we're belittling that decision. We're making fun of that decision. Grayson Waller is a gold mine when it comes to creating heat or creating controversy. I swear he sleeps next to Eric Bischoff's book, Controversy Creates Cash. He sees the moment. Dijak jumps into it, and Dijak is one hell of a professional wrestler for NXT, and it's sure as hell one hell of a professional troll on the Twitter machine. I loved what he did the other night, or what they did the other night, and fans had fun with it. Hopefully there was no broken glass during said tweets, but we'll see. But like I said, AEW, the owner needs to write checks and sit back and watch his talent. There's nothing wrong with an attaboy at the end of the show or when the show goes off the air. But it is time for Tony Khan to stop being Vince McMahon and start thinking about the families that he employs. Because sooner or later, if he doesn't, nobody's going to want to sit in them stands. And nobody is going to benefit from an empty gate. And nobody is going to benefit from empty merchandise sales. And nobody is going to benefit in the long run by not being able to make a living. Now, that's not to say that WWE can't make 6 more brands and spread their wealth even further. But AEW, first off, AEW needs to get rid of Rampage. Get rid of Rampage. It's a nice little side piece, but you have Wednesday and Saturday. Okay. Yeah, you're never going to beat a PLE, a WWE PLE that Collision is up against. But there's nothing wrong with that Saturday show. Hell, move it up to 5 in the afternoon. Harken back to the old WCW Saturday night episodes. It started at 5:05 or 6:05 Eastern time. If you really want to have some nostalgia to WCW, do that. That way you have your own set audience, and then the lead off or the end coincides with the start of WWE pay-per-view. And you're on air when the kickoff shows go on. I mean, instant viewers. You're not, and you're running unopposed. So, Tony, if you ever hear this, maybe I don't know. Get the booker's pencil out of your hand and hand the book over to somebody who's going to make it sense, and just wave your hand and go, okay, I believe in you. And let your talent do their job. Let your talent show in that ring instead of on a mic and showing their ass unintentionally. Because guess what? If it is true that Tony Khan told Will Ospreay to go out there and take a shot at Triple H, if Will Ospreay wanted to leave AEW eventually for WWE, you just did some damage to him. Yeah, you did some damage to Kazuchika Okada, which Okada at this point he's into AEW until retirement. Dude's got a pretty fat deal. You're hurting talent by going lowbrow. Yes, WWE is going to take shots, but guess what? WWE is the blue whale in the ocean that is professional wrestling. While you're just tuna or krill at this point. Impact is a bigger, more established fish than AEW. And I know I'm going to get somebody go, well, no, they're not. TNA, Impact, has been around for 22 years now. Between the TNA era, the Impact era, the Global Force Wrestling era, going back to Impact, going to the rebirth of TNA. 22 years. I think it was the dumbest decision ever to get rid of Scott D'Amore because he led the revival of TNA and making it something people want to watch. You know, take lessons from Triple H and Scott D'Amore and do your talent right that way. You know, you can stand on the shoulders of giants if you quit trying to throw stones at them to knock them down. All right, let's see here. SmackDown. SmackDown is going to be interesting because it is the first SmackDown of the Cody Rhodes era. It is undisputed Universal WWE Champion or undisputed WWE Champion, or they get rid of the. We know he's undisputed. We know he outright won the title. He doesn't need that either. And if they give him a new belt, represent him. Go Triple H. Go. I mean, not like I got any preference here or not, but yeah. We're gonna see more. I expect more NXT talent to be showcased during SmackDown in preparation for the draft. I don't know if we're gonna get a further in per se of the Final Testament and the Pride. I think that was the write-off at WrestleMania. I expect we'll kind of see a melding of Bailey and the Big Three and Damage Control facing off against each other over the course leading up to Backlash. It's going to be interesting now that Braun Breaker is officially SmackDown bound, how they really give him a standout debut match outside of the enhancement talent he's had the luxury of beating up for these last couple of appearances. Let's see here. It'd be nice to see Baron Corbin back. Just let Baron Corbin wrestle. You know, if you need to. I'm not saying Baron can't talk. If you need to, attach Paul Heyman to him and Braun and let him fly. Um, I'm interested to see what this LWO and Legado del Fantasma feud continues, and to see if eventually Carlito turns or what. Um, I'm excited because for the first time, when you don't really have that much information as to how they're going to do SmackDown, it kind of makes you salivate to go, "Oh, what can we expect?" Um, it used to be that way during the Attitude Era. You got left on a cliffhanger, not knowing what next to expect, and it's perfect writing for WWE to sit there and leave you on a cliffhanger for the next week's show. Um, Final thoughts. Now I know I'm not Jerry Springer, and I'm not going to tell you to treat each other as you'd be allowed to be treated or whatever he says. But I want to give a couple shout outs actually. Um, Dave LaGreca and the Busted Open crew. Dave LaGreca is a fan of professional wrestling, just as I am. We never stepped in a ring, with the exception of to meet a wrestler and take a photograph. Dave LaGreca has actually gotten to wrestle, but he will tell you he is a fan first. Uh, I draw inspiration from each and every one of them, to include your more wrestling centric personalities as far as the media side. Justin LeBar, Denise Salcedo. You know, my hope is to one day be as successful as them, but everywhere you got to have a start. Um, who else? Who else? Conrad Thompson and Eric Bischoff. People are like, "Oh, I don't like Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff failed." How did Eric Bischoff fail when he is still within the consciousness of professional wrestling in regards to its fan base and to its history? Man's a Hall of Famer, a WWE Hall of Famer. If WCW still existed, he'd be a WCW Hall of Famer. Um, People don't give that man as much credit and due respect as he deserves. And yeah, he's going to tell you his opinion on AEW because you know what? He was there in the good times and the not so good times leading up to WCW ending. And then people go, "Oh, well, Eric Bischoff's the reason." Eric Bischoff, 4 months before the finger poke of doom, before the Goldberg lost at Starcade by the taser by the late Scott Hall. Eric Bischoff was already out of power there in WCW. Somebody else had the pencil. Quit thinking that Eric Bischoff, and I'm not even blaming Vince Russo. I'm blaming Turner Television. I'm blaming the fact that Eric Bischoff could have had an opportunity to have a wealth of uh, talent in the booking department himself. Yes, kill off the NWO. The NWO was way overused at that point. But Eric Bischoff, as I firmly believe, maybe only shares a fraction of him, if that. I don't even think a fraction that he doesn't deserve the hate he gets, and he's fair in delivering the criticisms that he does give to Tony Khan and the business because he wants Tony Khan to. Everybody wants somebody to succeed, even if they're not exactly fans of what you do. Because, as it was said by many people before, when professional wrestling succeeds, everybody benefits, not just the fans, not just the promoters, not the bookers, everybody. That includes your talent. Don't punish your talent. That's that. It's an hour and 10 into this. I'm going to give it a little bit of a break and go ahead and cut it here. I thank you for listening. If you enjoy this, please share this with your friends. I'm hoping to get picked up by somebody or work with somebody. So if you're interested in a knowledgeable professional wrestling voice, a fan voice, please let me know as well. Um, this is Chris Branson with Card Subject to Change or DVD Podcast. Uh, Signing out.